Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an A330 pilot, and on this video let's fly the Latin VFR A330-900 for the very first time, featuring Condor's first A330-900, one that we like to call the Zuckerstange in real life. Alright, let's head straight into the cockpit and have a look. Before starting the flight, however, let's set out some basic expectations. This is an entry-level product. That means the systems are kept very close to default A320 level systems. And that is what we're expecting of this one. Now, Latin VFR does make that quite clear that this is not an study level simulation, so we don't approach it with that expectation either. We're going to approach this from a beginner's perspective. And make sure that it is going to fulfill those beginner's promises. Alright then, we are going to start by basically powering the airplane up. So we've got the engine masters off, the engine start selector norm, which is missing on the text down there. The weather radar, well, that certainly should be in system 1, that should be off. Landing gear lever is down and the wipers are off. Now, something I noticed down here is that the brake acupressure gauge should be showing even with the electricals turned off. Okay, so from here on, the same goes for the battery voltage up there, by the way, because we are supposed to check it before we actually turn the airplane on. Alright, light to the people, power is turned on. Let's see, the RMPs are on, then we can go ahead and run the APU fire test. Okay, which is not simulated, so we can't press that button. So we'll just continue without it and start by aligning our IRS number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, that's like the basics done, so let's go ahead and have a very quick look into the electronic flight bag, where we are going to have a look into what we've got over here. So we've got several options there, starting with the aircraft status. Maybe we can just load the flight data over here. And then we've got system states, where we can select different panel states. We've got the ramp manager, where we can control a lot of the external equipment that we have here. For example, we can control the doors, we can connect air conditioning units, and so on. So, as you can see, quite a bit of stuff that we can do over here, including connecting ground power unit, and so on. For the sake of fun of it, let's go ahead and maybe put some stairs towards the back, and maybe we can get some catering vehicles over here, just to see what that is gonna look like. Alright, so while these arrive, let's have a quick look. Weather report. Down here we can request weather data for a lot of different airports. For example, let's go for Stuttgart, which is one of our en route airports that we've got. Request METAR, and here we go. Alright, next up we've got aircraft checklists, but do note that these are not the real-life Airbus checklists. Rather, these are the procedures you need to do to run the Latin VFR Airbus. As you can see, lots of things are simplified in here. However, something really nice is that if we open up the tray table, we got the checklist down here as well, which makes it very easy to handle the aircraft. Obviously, as mentioned, this is a beginner's aircraft, so for that reason things might be very simplified, but especially for a beginner, it is quite nice to have those checklists available readily at hand in order to be able to get accustomed with the aircraft. Then going on further down here, we've got the weight and fuel menu, so let's go ahead and see how much fuel we actually need and how much payload we actually need, and we can do that right down here in the SimBrief flight plan, which we can quickly integrate. Also note, we've got that little button sent to CDU over here, so that we can automatically program the flight management system in the aircraft. Alright, so this is all we've got from the flight plan, but it is the most important things that we need in order to fill out the aircraft. But we are going to get back to that later. For now, the important thing, block fuel here is 10.3. Let's make that 11, or tell you what, let's just make that 15 tons so that we've got a little bit of extra there. So here we go, 15.5, and that shall be fine. Similarly, for the weights, let's have another look. We are looking at a zero fuel weight of 167.5. So let's load that one up till we got... oh, interesting, it doesn't tell us the zero fuel weight at all. Okay, fine. Well, in that case, let's see what do we got down here. Cargo payload 32.4 tons of payload, so let's go by that. And that looks like a reasonable value. Or 32.4, look at that, it just tells me 85 passengers when I do that. That seems a little bit, oh no, I'm wrong. Forget what I said. I was confusing pounds with kilograms, so this is looking better, like 34 tons of payload, 206 passengers. Now in Cimbri things were a little bit higher. Down here we had 310 passengers, giving us roughly a similar weight. So that's quite a difference between cargo and passenger weight that we see up there. Right, then with our aircraft loaded, we got a very simplistic takeoff and landing performance calculator down here that we can make use of. I suppose we'll get to that later. We've got Navigraph settings where we can basically log on, and then we've got the Navigraph charts over here as well. So for example, if we want charts for our departure from Frankfurt, let's go ahead and grab them over here. Frankfurt, search, and then we're looking, for example, for the airport chart. So let's go ahead and grab that one. Don't see any way to pin this anywhere, so looks like we need to find those charts more or less live on the fly. But I suppose we can make work with that. Finally, we have OANS. Now this is from Navigraph, and this implements the, well, it implements what is more commonly known as Safe Taxi in the flight sim community, but we'll get to that. Basically, you get your airport map displayed on the navigation display, which is a feature of the A330neo aircraft, optionally. But we'll see about it. Certainly going to be interesting to see that in action. Alright, so for now we are going to go to the Cimbri flight plan, send that one to the CDU, and see what we're going to come up with. Tells me not in database here, that's interesting. Let's just have a quick look here. Flight plan, Frankfurt and Munich, alternate none, and well, let's take alternate towards Nuremberg. Not in database, interesting. Well, that certainly should be in database. The call sign is going to be the Condor 4 Tango Kilo. Costing is 100, cruise level 230, looks good. And for the routing from Frankfurt, we are departing from runway 18 via Cindy departure. That's going to be Cindy 3 Lima departure here. Insert that. And finally for our destination, we've got an ILS approach runway 8 left, and we'll take a transition out of Rokiel from the approach vias. So Rokiel 08 transition. Here we go. That shall be good enough. Okay, perfect. So that is our routing inserted over here. And here we've got the OANS in action. So if I zoom out a little bit here, that's basically our airport map coming straight from Navigraph. And that is certainly going to be quite cool to see that in action. Alright. So that is that part of the setup. Secondary flight plan, unfortunately not implemented. The RATNAV page, I suppose we're just going to leave that all automatic. Then next up we would enter the fix info. That is not implemented as well. Okay, so going to the performance init page 2, that stuff has been automatically filled out. And then going to performance init itself, let's go ahead and do a little bit of mathematics down here. Let's take that performance calculator. It's a little bit confusing that clicking the home button does nothing, but then you've got that symbol up here. Alright, so takeoff speeds. Let's see. Takeoff weight is forecast as 182.7, so I'm just going to calculate 183 tons. So 183. Yeah, that is a little hard to put in there. 183 tons. Enter. And it's going to be flap config 2. Okay, we need to enter the rest as well. Fair enough. So 13 degrees centigrade. The runway length in feet. Well, that is going to be interesting. Okay. So in feet, let's see. Gotta have that on the airport chart. On here it's 13,123. I suppose we're going to shorten that a little, give me 12,500. Then we've got a nice allowance for the lineup as well. So 12,500. And the QNH. Let's quickly look up that weather once again. So looking at Frankfurt weather this time, request 1010 as we can see. It's interesting that the keyboard every time vanishes for the first time you take your mouse off that. Here we go, 37, 37, 48. Very nice. By the way, if you want to make your life a bit easier, you can just put the flap setting in there at first, but I do suppose we are going to do it the old-fashioned way. So 1400, 1400 for the reduction acceleration. Engine out acceleration is going to be 1900. Okay, we can't change that, it seems. The flex takeoff temperature seems to be calculated automatically on this one. Not exactly how we do it on the real one, but that's fine. Takeoff shift is 57 meters for intersection Lima. Okay, it doesn't take that as well. Then let's just enter the speeds. 137, 137, 148. 137, 137, 148. Here we go. Okay, next phase. Normally up here you have the derated climb on the A330. Looks like they just took the FMS from the default A320, so we don't have that up here. But normally that is up there, we would always use it, but that's alright. So progress page, Frankfurt runway 18 for our departure. Oh, that isn't working either. Okay, so we cannot enter that. And I do suppose cruise optimum and recommend maximum aren't calculated either in this thing. Well, so be it, we are gonna get there eventually. Alright, let's quickly head out for a second and have a look at all the vehicles that we've got connected now. So, we connected the stairs at the back. That's where we are normally boarding our aircraft. And then in the front we've got a catering vehicle now, and we've got some of the cargo loaders. So nice to see that those visual effects are there at least. Something else I just about noticed going to the other side is here on the livery that registration seems to be mirrored, but I do hope that that's just a thing with the livery. In any case, that is pretty much the look at the airplane, so I suppose we're going back into the cockpit, maybe turn up the brightness a little bit. That stuff works at least, very nice. And we're going to do the same on the PFD and on the ND. Same thing on the ECAM, but those are at max already, very good. Then we can turn up this place on the FO side as well. Alright, cool. So, that is that part of the setup down here. So let's go ahead with our systems. Now, starting on the overhead panel, everything is looking good over here. Oxygen is on, flight recorder ground control we would put on, but that button is not simulated. Indeed, it looks like none of the... Oh yeah, the fuel jettison is simulated. And we can turn off the secondary flight computer number 1. But I don't really see what that is for in this airplane, seeing that it is certainly just a very basic representation of the A330. Alright, so that's everything we can do on this side. Let's go ahead with the lights. We're going to use strobe lights auto, nothing logo 1. Seatbelts can come on, no smoking can come on, and the emergency lights should be armed, not on, but that button is not clickable, so we can't change that. Also, I'm going to start up the APU right over here. Let's have a look into how long that takes to start up, really. That is going a little bit too fast there. But then again, for default level complexity, I do believe this is alright. Needless to say, the EGT would behave a little bit different as well there, but I'm not going to go into details here. Okay then. So what I was a little bit disappointed to see is up here, the standby fuel pumps are not simulated. Those are quite important in the A330, and well, that we can't click those, that they're always on, is a little bit of a pity. But it just goes back to the default A320 architecture down here, because the way I see this is we've got an automatic transfer of the fuel to the trim tank. That is a feature advertised for the plane, but apart from that, the buttons we can click is just the standard A320 fuel system over there. Similarly here on the hydraulics, nothing we can click up here, and we can't do the fire test for the for the engines either. Okay then, on the other hand side down here, not a lot of buttons we can click. We can change the cargo temperature, but we can't click any of the other buttons, and that's about it. Okay, well, so be it. Alright, then going down here, we've got the clock and GPS, the timer is reset. Train on ND, we don't need that yet. North reference, not simulated. That's quite a pity. I would absolutely expect that one to work. And the QNH is missing on the ISIS over here. Right, APU running, alright. Yeah, that's an interesting one here as well. Once an econ page is selected, you just can't get it back out again unless you go like over the all button. But then it shows you a cruise page on the ground, which it shouldn't. Obviously on the ground it should show you the door page and then cycle through the pages as applicable during your flight. Unfortunately that is not happening over here. Alright, then the acupressure however is looking alright. And I suppose with the pedestal we are pretty much done down here. So, that cockpit door video unfortunately isn't working. The door lock is always in the lock position, but that is alright. The TCAS should definitely be off right now, and the squawk we can take... Oh, come on. 2000. We can't change the TCAS mode. Nothing over here. Those buttons are not simulated, so I suppose we'll just have to see and find our way around this. Okay, talking about finding our way around this, let's just go ahead and set the QNH 1010, flight director and constraints. Initial climb is going to be 4000, and then we can do the oxygen test. Well, or at least we should, but looks like that isn't simulated in here either. So you can see very basic on the systems there, mostly expanding on, or rather mostly featuring the standard A320 systems. Which, I suppose, when you know it ahead of your purchase, is totally fine. Okay, so, cockpit windows cannot be opened, by the way, but let's have a very quick look. They do say they feature a virtual cabin, so let's see. We can open the cockpit door, we can go back here, but I'm gonna go into details a little bit later in flight, as we'll have a little bit of time to spend over that. Okay, so, we're just gonna close that door again, and that is it. Right, so let's have a seat, and let's get GSX to call our pushback tuck. So, prepare position for pushback and departure, please. And that's pretty much everything that we could do over here. Let's have a quick look into the checklist, make sure that we covered everything. So, pre-flight, interior and exterior inspection complete. Recorder, well, on is not simulated. Passenger signs on and auto, again, only the on position simulated. Emergency lights armed. Well, unless I'm just too stupid to click that button, that is not working. Interesting as well that the annunciator light button here is in the test position, which, well, obviously you would have it either on bright or on dim, preferably on bright during daylight. But okay, let's continue. Then, altimeters, that is QNH 1010, reading about 360. We don't have QNH indication, unfortunately, so I suppose we can just set it like this. So 1010 reading 360. Cross-checked, flight instruments and... or flight and nav instruments checked, ECAM status checked, takeoff warning checked. I wonder how that is supposed to work in an Airbus. Park and brake set, radar off, radius and transponder set, windows closed and locked, oxygen mask checked, isn't simulated. Flight attendant briefing complete, departure briefing complete, logbook and QRH on board, and fuel required. Or we require something like 10 tons, we got 15.5 on board, so that is just fine. Alright, let's go ahead and close the doors, and then we are going to make our way. So, ramp manager, let's get rid of all that stuff. Let's see, chocks seem to be out already. So you should be able to go any moment now. Or are there any chocks in place? No, there aren't. Very good. Okay, so what about those doors now? Still open. Let's close them down. Here we go. A little quick, but ultimately we're there. Interestingly, this one still shows open, but the door is closed and slide armed, so I suppose that's fine. Alright, very good. Then let's go ahead. Beacon can come on. APU bleed on. Let's get rid of that external power. Where's that? Here, I suppose. Is there any connected now? No, it's gone. Okay. Good. Okay, so we are ready to pushback. Let's see what GSX is up to right now. Continue pushback. Facing west, please. Alright, so for the pushback, they say fuel panel set. Wonder what that's about. Okay, doors closed, flight deck door closed and locked, transponder auto. The latter we can certainly do. And that's the pushback checklist in here complete. Well, again, quite simplified in the quite simplified in here, but I suppose it's okay. Alright, so parking brake released. Roger that. So we're waiting until we are past the red line, and then we can commence our engine start. Rumors say that in the A330 you can start both engines at the same time. However, that is certainly not the official way of doing things. So for that reason, we're going to do it one by one. Starting with the left engine, and then the right-hand engine, because the left engine is connected to the blue hydraulic system, which feeds the alternate brakes and the parking brake. For that reason, it's going to be left engine first. Alright then, good to go. I wonder why those taxiway signs are floating, by the way, but doesn't matter. Let's go straight into the cockpit and start up the engines. So, engine start selected, ignition start. We should theoretically hear the air conditioning system shutting down now. Well, the bleed is on, so yeah, we should have heard that. And we should have pressure down here on the igniters now. Also, I wonder why we're getting an N3 indication there, and an N1 on the vibrations, but that's alright. Let's go ahead and start engine number 1. While that happens, quick look at the hydraulics. Oh, okay, it shows 3000 psi each. No, that is not supposed to happen. Okay, so we'll just start up the engine automatically. And here we go with the OANS again. Again, that's a really cool feature. You do need a Navigraph account for that to work, but that is a really cool feature. Makes it much easier to navigate on the airport as well. Alright, engine 1 still starting. Okay, engine 2. Interesting, by the way, that we get both an APU avail and APU bleed indication. That they should replace one another. And interesting to see that we only get start pressure when the starter's actually on. That's not exactly how the A330 would work, but all pressure is rather high as well at 233 psi. But overall, it is doing what it is supposed to do by starting up the engines. And again, I am probably being overcritical over here, seeing that this is intended to be an entry-level simulation and really for the beginners. And for that, I have to say that you need minimal input over here. The airplane starts up. Loading the FMC was very easy just with the import from the EFB, so that is alright for what it is supposed to be. Okay, cool, then after start. Here we go, and the trim should have set itself automatically, 30.6. Let's see what we've got down here. Yeah, that's not quite 30.6. This is about it. Okay, cool. Then let's continue with the flight control track. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, and the rudder. Full left, full right, neutral. Okay, cool. Clear on the left, clear on the right. Let's turn on the lights, release the parking brake. And the A330 by default should roll with idle thrust, certainly at a weight as light as this one. Now, I can't promise that the Neo behaves exactly like the 200 and 300 that I fly, but let's just use a little bit of thrust then to get going. Okay, brake check. Alright. That's a bug down here. That brake pressure should be 0 now, because this is the alternate brake system, and it only shows the pressure that is being applied. So there should be no indication up there on normal taxi. Maybe that's something they can fix with a future update. In terms of taxi dynamics, obviously we are taxiing in Neo over here, which is a little bit different from the 200 and 300 that I fly. However, the most important thing that we can see in the plane there is going to be the oversteering technique. So let's go to idle thrust. The plane should keep rolling pretty much. So let's oversteer that a little bit, and then we go to the left. Alright, that needs a little bit of getting used to over here. Same on the other end side. So this is maximum tiller input right now, and there should be quite a bit more in the real plane. Well, there is quite a bit more in the real plane. There should be quite a bit more on this one. But I suppose, seeing that most people are going to fly this one with an Xbox controller, the ground handling is not exactly like an actual A330, but it's getting us where we want to go. Let's put it that way. So let's see if we can find a good speed to hold our 30 knots in here. On the real A330, brake temperature and brake energy is really a thing during taxi, as you can easily increase the brake temperature by like 100 degrees and therefore reduce the amount of braking you will get later on in case I reject the takeoff. Let's see if we can find anything down here on the wheel page. 15 degrees all around. Let's just brake really hard. This is maximum braking now. The real one can brake quite a bit quicker if you really wanted to. So let's accelerate back again and see if we've got any increase in brake temperatures. Again, I am going a little bit too far here with what I'm actually checking. That's outside the scope of what this is designed for. But I want to see what I can get out of it, so we might as well give this a try. Okay, brake temperature 16 degree now. Yeah, probably not a complete simulation implemented behind that logic, but that's gonna be all right. Okay, nice to see the OANS works perfectly though. It's quite smooth. The only thing I notice is here when I'm changing the range, it is lagging a little bit. It causes a small stutter in the sim, but thereafter the sim continues smoothly all the way. In terms of the EFBs, the right one seems to be a mirror of the left one. Will be interesting to see if we can, however, manipulate the right one. So let's just give that a look. Yep, we can. So basically, let's see, going to the menu, yeah, they're just mirrors of one another, but I suppose for what you want to do with this thing, it is totally fine. Okay, so, no updates on the takeoff briefing. Let's see, Automate Max, normally the takeoff config test should be down here. I mean, we can press the button, but it doesn't seem to have any effect. Normally there should be one more line over here, but I suppose that's fine for it as well. Alright, so that's pretty much all the stuff that we could test down here. Now let's talk about getting the thing flying. The flex temperature is calculated automatically in the simulation over here, and for the weight that we're at just 186 tons. 49 degrees seems to be very little. I would expect more, something in the very high 50s, or maybe even 60. But I do suppose that is going to be fine if it calculates this automatically. Overall, we've got different engines on here on the Neo than what I'm used to fly on the CEOs. But we'll have to see how that is going to turn out. In any case, after takeoff we expect a pitch of 15 degrees, and we should get flight director guidance thereafter. So there shouldn't be too much we need to do. We're going to take off with manual flight initially, and then we're going to turn on the autopilot a little bit later to see how it is going to perform. A small word in terms of manual flight, however. I am running this one on the initial release version 1.0, but I've gotten a couple of updated flight dynamic files from the developer already, because I did complain a little about the feeling of the pitch. So that thing's been updated, and that is going to be in version 1.1 that you are going to receive very shortly, hopefully. Obviously pretending whatever that Microsoft does on the marketplace intake process. But that's just a little bit of background that I thought is essential to share with you over here. Okay, we're approaching the runway. Let's go ahead and turn on the lights, and we are cleared for takeoff. We'll leave the packs on. This is going to be a pack on takeoff. And, well, normally we'd switch the TCAS on at this point as well, but I suppose we'll have to do without them. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. Alright, let's break it down to 10 knots, and then we'll do a 90-degree lineup. That's quite a challenge in the A330, because you must finish that turn and take the plane straight for a little. Otherwise, you are really going to put the main gears under a lot of stress. I want to avoid that, so here we go. Oversteering and full left tiller. I shouldn't need the amount of thrust I need right now. Normally it rolls around the corner quite fine. The angle at which we can steer right now seems to be okay to me. And here we go. Okay, lined up on the runway. Oh, the auto brake came off again. Why is that? Oh, interesting. When I'm applying maximum brakes, while the auto brake is engaged, it's going off. That's not how it's supposed to work, but, well. Okay, so very quick look into the departure chart. Let's at least bring that one up. Ooh, that was a little bit quick. Cindy. 3 Lima. Here we go. Okay, cool. Ready to go? Then I would say, start the timer. Give me a decent range. What is that user point doing there? That's certainly not supposed to be there. Takeoff. Chrono button up here cannot be clicked. Alright, stabilized. Mantoga. Runway, auto thrust blue. That's not how it's supposed to be. Runway mode cannot come on without a localizer, and we don't have a localizer here in runway 18. And SRS mode should be on, which there isn't. Plus the flight director lateral bar should certainly be centered right now. Okay, rotate. Here's the SRS mode. Okay, a positive climb. Gear up. 15 degrees of pitch should be sufficient. But looks like it isn't. Okay, so let's just go direct Delta Fox 101 so that we get proper navigation here again. Insert. Okay, flaps 1. And flaps 0. Okay, so let's set climb thrust. Here you go, thrust climb. Nav mode is still not active, which is a little bit surprising. It absolutely should be by now. Okay then, continue the climb. Initially flight level 110. Now, watch this. I'm doing minimal input on the stick, and the nose is coming down quite quickly. That is a little bit overdone, to my opinion. This is a little bit overdone. This would cause quite some strong G-forces. And now the vertical mode is gone completely. Let's push that in again. But to be fair, at this point, the developers did say that an avionic update is planned. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about this. Let's see though if we can fly this accurately. Let's try and follow the flight director there. Again, this is like minimal stick input here, and that is certainly far too much of a response that we're getting from the airplane. It absolutely shouldn't be that drastic. Okay, set standard. Oh, can't push that one. Okay, Interesting. How shall we set that to standard then? I don't care. Okay. Autopilot on. Let's see what the AP is doing out of this. We do have the sunshade simulated over here, but it's still pretty dark inside the cockpit, so you can barely make out the route down here, which is rather unfortunate, but I suppose we are eventually going to get there. Alright, climb to flight level 230, that is the altitude that we are looking for, and then we can do our after takeoff stuff, really. Here we go. Okay, cool, so fly into the sun. Let's get those intake lights up over here. Small notice that I have at this point. See that, with the intake lights turned down, the lights on the overhead are still on. In the A330, they're controlled by the same switch, contrary to the A320, where they have separate switches. Just something I thought I'd mention. Okay then, passing 100, so that's gonna be lights off. Well, I'm gonna keep the seatbelts on as long as we're flying through the clouds over here. Airport. Oh, okay, synchronized. And then over here, clear RATNAV, active to secondary doesn't work, fixed page doesn't work, and we have nothing on here. Okay. Well, that is okay. So, going into the first turn, let's see how that thing is going to perform. Overshooting the turn a little bit here, it seems. I do guess, since they're using the default avionics, that is probably due to the speed increasing within the turn. I suppose the default avionics can probably just not handle that correctly, but, well, I suppose that's the downside of what you get when you are running something on the default avionics. Okay, so temperatures plus 14, we don't need anti-ice quite yet. Okay, reaching our final climb speed, 320 knots. Let's see what kind of rate of climb we're getting out of this. I would expect something between 2,000 and 3,000 feet a minute. At this kind of weight, and without a climb derate. But then again, always keep in mind when I'm saying any performance values over here, that we've got different engines under this, as it is in Neo, compared to the one that I'm flying. So for my taste, the pitch is a little bit low right now at 2.5 degrees. I would expect it a little bit more. Certainly our flaps have been retracted, so that's not the case for it. Just want to be sure that I'm not self-inducing any problems here. Okay, heading directly towards Amtix though. Oh, this is interesting. 085, and we are more doing something like, I don't know, this. Is that 085 over here? I suppose it might be. Alright, so we are on the way. Just waiting until we're breaking clear of the clouds so that we can turn off our seatbelt signs. And then we are going to have a look through the cabin as well to see what kind of graphics and features we can find in there. For now, first impression of our departure. Obviously, taking into account that this is a default systems level aircraft and that it doesn't claim to be anything else, we have to say that, yeah, it did what it was supposed to do, though obviously in a very simplified manner. But I suppose that is intentional from the developer, so that is all fine for now. Obviously, I don't think we need to mention the things we talked about earlier, like our FMA not showing correctly, like the route not showing correctly there. That probably all comes down to the default stuff. But if you've flown the default A320neo for a little bit, then do let me know in the comments below if it behaves the same way or if it is behaving any different. At this point, it might also be worth noting that the fly-by-wire mod does not have any influence on the Latin VFR A330-900. It is completely separate from the fly-by-wire, and even having the fly-by-wire installed, like I do right now while I'm recording this, is not going to show you any of the fly-by-wire features. However, there has been a common misconception in public that modding the airplane would not be allowed. That is not the case. The developer has withdrawn from that statement earlier, and mods of the airplane are encouraged, so we'll have to see whatever we are going to get in the aftermath of the release. And we'll have to see how we can put that in perspective. Okay then, overflying Cindy, I suppose we might just keep the seatbelts on and head out for the cabin, so that we can see what we've got in the back up there. Do you note seatbelts and fasten and no smoking signs are turned on at the moment, so we'll have to see if they actually have an influence. Also, what I want to check real quick, let's turn that weather radar on. Well, again, minimum is certainly not good. Multiscan. Okay, looks like we just can't do anything except for turning on the weather radar here and selecting the modes. So let's just see what we've got. Looks like we do have some weather radar returns. I'm just going to turn off the airport display here. And if we have a quick look outside, there might actually be precipitation at the points where it is indicated to be. Even though, keeping all of that in mind, it is just the standard 2D top-down thing that we've got from Asobo, and not an actual weather radar. So it's just the 2D top-down, but I suppose that is definitely better than nothing. Right, going back inside then, we're just going to keep that for the flight, 80-mile range, and then we can head over to the cabin, have a look over at it. So let's open that door and we go to the back. So first thing for me to notice, they don't have a cockpit crew rest up here. So I can't like that plane anymore. They do need to have a cockpit crew rest. But to be fair, these things are optional in real life and are certainly not standard equipment. So we can't blame them for not having one. The fleet that I'm flying is mixed a little bit between different versions of the A330. Some have the cockpit crew rest, others don't. I can tell you nobody likes flying those which don't. Alright then, let's have a look into the business class. This is what the seats look like over here, and this is what we've got on the on-screen menu. First thing for me to notice is that the level of detail in the cabin over here is on par with other developers' aircraft. The door is actually looking quite alright. Even though the slide should obviously be armed right now, so that should be as it is, but I wonder what that remove before flight thing is doing there. And I wonder why there is no wall behind that little door handle there. In any case, let's just take a seat into one of those first class seats, and I want to take that one over here. Let's see what things do look like in the back. Level of detail on the windows, quite some scratches for a new A330-900. But apart from that, the cabin does have an acceptable level of detail over here, and I would tend to say that for what this add-on is supposed to be, the level of detail, well, ain't perfect as we can see over here, but is okay. For the record, I do not seem to be able to click on any of the switches over here. Okay, so that is our first class cabin. Then we can head over into the premium economy cabin. Or at least I would like to, but there is an invisible wall over there, but here we go. So that's the galley on the doors 2 left and right. 2 attendant seats, well 3. Got a couple of nice photos over there. And then going back into the premium economy cabin, if we can somehow. Looks like there are invisible walls over here again. So it looks like we are blocked out from walking into the premium economy cabin. Okay, well, so be it. So that is what we've got in here. Again, level of detail looking alright. We just can't walk back there, but I suppose maybe they changed that with a coming update? We certainly don't know. Alright, so back into the cockpit. What's it doing with our speed here? Descent mode? Why is that? I just spent a short while in the cabin. What are you doing, airplane? Looked like we might have reached the top of descent it's decided on for itself, but that does seem to be a little bit early for me. So tell you what, give me open climb, please. And that shouldn't be speed, that should be thrust climb now. Let's just get up to level 230, and then we can still slow it down later on. The engines do seem very slow to respond over here. I would expect a quicker response from my engines, so that we actually start the climb to level 230, please. Will you? Taking very long to spool up. Trim tank forward transfer. That's interesting. We should never have had an aft transfer on a short flight like this. Let's have a look. Fuel. Oh, look at that. It seems to be transferring not only into the wing tanks, but also into the center tank. That's not how the fuel transfer works. It should only transfer between the main tanks on the left and the right wing into the aft and then back to the front in order to keep the center of gravity at an optimum. Now, it should stop that transfer when descending through flight level 255 or when, I believe it's 45 minutes something from destination. Okay, alt star. And due to that time restriction from destination, it should never have transferred anything to the aft on this particular flight. Okay then, let's release the passengers at least for a short moment of the flight. And I might just go into a heading to avoid that little bit of the weather up there. So let's go heading 120. So that should certainly give us a return of the weather radar. But I don't seem to see anything over here. So, I don't know. A sober weather radar, I suppose. That's why I call it useless. Alright, cool. So, we are avoiding that kind of weather. And at some point over here, a beam left boo or so, we are going to start our descent for an ILS approach runway 8 left. Let's go ahead and grab the charts for the arrival. So, airport, we are going to go towards Munich now. Again, observe that keyboard flickering. So, Munich airport, and we'll just take the approach. I'm not going to bother with the arrival. Seeing that we've got the default systems in here, we don't have any constraints or something the likes. Let's see if we can set any though. Let's say we want 8,000 feet by Rockhill. No. Okay. And obviously, clicking on the right LSK, we should have gotten into the vertical revision, not the lateral revision. So, again, quite simplified. But I suppose for the very beginner who's buying his first couple of add-ons, that is gonna work out. Alright then, so ILS approach. Why is it showing us? That's supposed to be Munich right here. 7 left. Frankfurt. No? I'm looking for Munich, my friend. Have that at the bottom somewhere? Oh, look at that! Now it gives us Munich. That's interesting. That is, so it didn't remove the, it didn't remove the charts we had from Frankfurt from our first departure. Interesting. Well, I suppose now we got what we're looking for. So, minimum 1667, frequency 109.5 and 080. So let's have a very quick look over this. Mark 5000, that looked okay down there. So over here, ILS 08 left. Well, that should show the ident, not the description. Let's see if we can tune some radios though. We want the DME Munich North, and we want 426 on the ADF. That looks okay to me. Let's turn it to VOR and ADF, as we'll need it for the approach. Okay. So, time to start our descent, and we are just going to use the open descent mode on this one. Down in 10,000. And we are clear of weather. Let's go direct to Rockhill. Rockhill, insert. That should have put us into nav mode. Looks like we need to click that button once more over here. That is not how it would work on the Airbus. Okay, then give me a decent rate of descent, please. Let's make that 300 knots. The A330 is not a very well descending airplane. Now, normal aircraft have a glide ratio of something like for 1,000 feet altitude loss, they take 3 miles going forward. The A330 needs a little bit more. It needs like 4 miles in order to lose 1,000 feet altitude. We need to keep that in mind when we are calculating our descent performance up here. So let's see at what kind of vertical speed it is going to establish. Normally something between 2 and 2,500 at a speed of 300 knots is quite fine. Then again, we're sitting in a Neo here, so performance might be slightly different. But let's have a look. 2,900 seems to be a little bit on the high side, but then again, I suppose that's just how things are. Let's continue with our setup then. Progress page, unfortunately we can't insert anything. Descent page. Let's go down here on the approach, and we've got weather from Munich Airport, please. Request. So 070 at 6, 15 degrees, 10, 11. I'm gonna start over here, 10, 11. And we set it's 15 degrees. And the wind is 070 at 6. Like that. Transition altitude is 5,000. Should have taken that from the database. And 1667 is our minimum. Like that. And here we go. That looks okay to me. Okay, missed approach, acceleration altitude 4,300. In case of an engine failure, looks like that is not simulated. And we can leave the reduction in acceleration here. Interesting that we don't see any calculation on the flap, slat, and clean speeds on the go-around pace, because we have them here. Should just be copy and paste with the same data, really. So, fuel prediction page. Well, looks like there is nothing calculated on here. That EFOP 12 tons, can that be correct? Yeah, 400 kilos to go might sound just about fine. Alright, last but not least, auto brakes low is what we're going to select, and that's it. So, let's turn the seatbelts back on. Still doing like 2,800 feet a minute. That is quite a steep descent for an A330. Tell you what, we'll just do vertical speed and let's make that 1,500 so that we can achieve a little bit nicer descent here. Speed, vertical speed. What is it accelerating towards? Okay, now it's reducing thrust again. But talk about acceleration. Let's just go 320 knots here. Just to see what comes about. Also, I'll just put the train on ND on. That should have removed the weather plus turbulence here. That should have replaced it with the peak altitudes of the terrain, but, well, looks like that isn't happening. Okay. Alright then, let's continue. Present heading. And see if we can extend the center line in here. Margot. Radial in. 260. Okay, not simulated either. Well, in that case, I am going to erase that direct for a moment. Let's see if we can play with those flight plan and waypoints a little bit. I might be breaking things completely right now, but I just want to see what we can or cannot do in here. So let's take the clear button and remove the from waypoint. Okay. I'm gonna insert that. Let's see. Oh, destination Rockhill. No. Okay, new destination, Munich. Isn't working. Okay, well that's not good. What about if we enter that up here? Not in database. Okay, might just have to reinsert the entire flight plan. But if that gives us the chance to see if you can manually do that, it might be well worth it. Okay, Munich, arrival, ILS 8 left, from, let's take Delta Mike 420, insert, what do we have now? Yeah, not the best, but looks okay to me. And let's just go direct Margot, and we remember, don't play with the flight plan. Again, for a beginner's aircraft, yeah, that is somewhat what I'm used to from other simulations as well, so I'm not putting entire blame on them here if they're using just the default systems. You know, ultimately it comes down to, does the developer tell you what he's doing, or doesn't he? And in this case he is telling us what he's doing, so I suppose we can't blame him for those default systems. On the more positive side though, they have said that they do implement, or that they do intend to implement some custom avionics, but always remember the target, or the target audience of the plane is going to remain the very inexperienced customer, so don't expect this to become anywhere near study level, or even anywhere near something intermediate. Okay then, starting our speed reduction, let's go down to 5,000 feet, and from there we're going to start our approach. So that's thruster idle open descent. Wonder where that lever asymmetric indication comes from, because the levers are symmetric here. I mean, I didn't touch them the entire time, and they do certainly seem to be in the climb notch. Let's see that once again. They're definitely in the climb notch now, so I'm not sure where the lever asymmetric over there comes from. Passing 10,000, lights on, seatbelts on, constraints, ILS, and GPS primary high accuracy with the start selector in norm. 17 miles to run to Margot, gotta lose a little bit of altitude, but that's fine. Set QNH 1011. Passing 9,400 now. Checked. Right, down here everything looks good. We can unfortunately not switch between config 3 and config full. We are fixed to the config full for landing. But okay, so be it. I'm going to keep the autopilot on for the ILS intercept, and then I am going to switch it off once we are established on the ILS. (1,900 feet a minute right now in idle thrust 250 knots is definitely too much. This should be somewhere close to 1,000 feet a minute or so for the rate of descent. In the actual A330 I would be high on energy right now. 12 miles to run to Margot. We need like 10 miles to lose our altitude, and then need to lose our speed, so right now I would be pulling the speed brake. But talk about pulling the speed brake, let's do that nonetheless. In the real aircraft the speed brake around about doubles the rate of descent, so we've got 1,900 now. Let's see if the drag of the speed brake is correct. Let's pull it all the way out and see what's gonna happen. Should get something, well... Let's wait until it stabilizes. Alt star. Okay, it's not gonna stabilize then since it's in alt star now, but so speed brake retracted. And you can give me vertical speed once more, please. 1,000 feet a minute. Let's see what I'm gonna get if we manage the speed now. Still no ILS indication. That should be coming in any moment, but we'll just go on a proper intercept heading. Or we might just have to check the frequency here, because that does not really look right. Tell you what, I'm pretty sure we don't have the frequency in, so let's tune it manually. 109.5. Or any indication now? No? Okay. Not allowed. Let's try without the slash. Okay, that works, and now we're also receiving some ILS information. Okay, not the most realistic way of tuning an ILS in Airbus, but well. Okay, what's it doing now? I just armed the approach mode, tried to put on the second autopilot, that didn't work. Okay, here we go. Localizer capture. That seems to be a little bit too far out. I mean, this is like 2 miles off the center line. Let's see how that is going to work out. ILS Cat 3, interesting. This should just say ILS 26 left or something the likes. Okay, that can go away. Sun is coming from the right hand side now. And look at that, we got some more sunshades on the side over here. Okay. So it's in lock mode, but certainly still off the localizer. That speaks a lot for having default level ILS interception there, which is pretty bad. Okay, flaps 1. Speed checked, flaps 1. Target speed is going down. Let's see, the S speed it says over here is 187. Even though the indication is missing of the S over here, it's still going down to the correct speed, so I suppose that's something at least. Looks like it's flying us past the, or beam the final approach fix. Okay, should have glide slope interception now, we do. Even though it didn't go into glide slope start, just went directly into glide slope. Shouldn't do that. Alright then, flaps 2. Speed's a little high for me now. Let's pull the speed brakes. See what we're gonna get. A very rapid deceleration. Wouldn't go that good in the actual A330. Okay. Just gonna stow that speed brake again. And the localizer is coming in. I'll leave the autopilot on until we can see if it actually establishes or not. But looks like it's slowly but steadily getting itself onto the ILS. Not exactly perfect, but here we are. Okay, cool. Then let's take the autopilot off. Oh, it went in open climb. Certainly not supposed to do that. Let's re-engage approach mode. Okay, gear down. With the gear down, the A330 is very slowly going to start losing speed on the final. We'll have to see how well or not that is going to work out in here. Also, once again, even the slightest pitch input is still resulting in like this, which is far too much of a pitching. Should be able to make much more precise corrections. Okay, flaps 3. And flaps full. Let's see how well auto thrust is going to maintain the speed. In the real A330 it has a tendency to fly a knot or two slower than the target. Again, those pitch inputs over here, normally I would do much less of an input there. It is making it a little bit hard to actually follow that glide slope manually. I suppose we're getting there, but it does take a lot of time. Not exactly perfect, but, well. The speed is being maintained quite well, though. That is certainly alright. Would expect the flight director to be a little bit more proactive. As you can see, it's not really showing us the climbs and the descents as it should, but it's giving us very late indication if we need to correct. Like right now we are well above the glide slope and we should get quite a nose down in command from the flight director for that. I would expect that especially for beginners whom this airplane is tailored towards, the flight director should give some little bit more precise commands so that the beginner can actually learn how to steer the airplane correctly. Right now we are a complete dot below and it barely tells me to pitch up. That's not what it's supposed to do. So let's see how the flare is going to go with that kind of pitch input. At 100 feet the auto trim is going to freeze in the A330. And then at 40 we will start pulling back slightly in order to initiate the flare. Okay, slight flare. Retard should have come a bit earlier, but we can control the pitch quite nicely. Okay, so that's an interesting spoiler deployment there. Anyway, we got reverse green and the decel. Okay, 70 knots past, manual brakes. Looks like I need full braking in order to get the auto brakes off. That's not what it should be. But here we are. Made it to Munich. Certainly not the best of all landings, but we at least made it down. And I do have to say, compared to the version 1.0 that's out in the stores at the moment, this improved aerodynamics file they sent me really did make a difference there. Okay, so that ground spoiler lever, by the way, should not have moved to the aft. It should have stayed where it was. Oh, look at that! Auto thrust is still active. Certainly ain't supposed to do that. Thrust levers in idle should kill the auto thrust, and as long as the button is out, that thing shouldn't come on at all. And seeing that I turned the flight directors off, we shouldn't have any FMA in first place. So it's still in speed mode there. Let's see if I can make it forget about that somehow. Auto thrust on and off, maybe? Not really. Okay, then I don't know what's triggering this. Alright, so as we taxi in, what do I think of the Latin VFR A330-900 then? Well, we are going to start with the visuals. The graphics of the cockpit are somewhat alrightish. They are obviously not on a study level Sims level, but at least the standard view on the outside over here isn't too bad. Even though I find it interesting that I can't seem to get my real world view, like something like this maybe, but now look at that. And I should be able to see a bit more the top of the glare shield here, so something with that geometry isn't quite right. Standard seating position is very low over here, and definitely not supposed to be like this. Also, it looks like the eyeballs that we can use to adjust our view don't seem to be aligned correctly anyway over here. Okay, well, gonna forget about those. So that much about the visuals. You can basically make out your own opinion on them. Definitely not as detailed as the Phoenix A320, but I would say pretty much on par with other default level aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator. In terms of flight dynamics, well, to be totally honest, the airplane does not feel like it has fly-by-wire attached to it at all. However, it does not need to be trimmed in flight, so I guess it's somewhat of a hybrid. For something on a default level, yeah, it does fly. Doesn't follow actual A330 handling characteristics well. Not all that much, even though they are still somewhat working on those features. So apart from that, what else do we have? Ground handling. Well, I would expect the airplane at a lighter weight to taxi a little bit better. Right now we need 40% thrust to get around the corner, stuff like that. Shouldn't be there. And in terms of systems, well, what can I say? Fly the default A320 and you know these systems. However, it does have an electronic flight bag, which isn't completely free of flaws, but it has some of the most important stuff there, like you're able to view your charts, and then obviously we've got the airport map down here, the OANS function, and that is something that I haven't seen to that level of detail in any other payware aircraft yet. I know it is available in the fly-by-wire A380, they did that, and it does look quite good, to be honest. Indeed, this looks very good, to be honest. The data comes straight from Navigraph, so obviously it is expected to look that good. Other than that, if you know the default A320 systems, then you know the Latin VFR A330 systems, and it remains to be seen what kind of upgrades they are going to do to the system. So would I recommend purchasing the Latin VFR A330 Neo? Well, the price point of this one is €35, which is a bit of money. you would get a PMDG 737-600 for the same price. But obviously we are targeting a different customer base on this one. And if you like flying the default A320 without the fly-by-wire mod, that is, if you like to fly the default A320 and that kind of aircraft is for you, then you are going to get an airplane which looks somewhat like an A330. Especially the outside model does look quite good, I have to say. The sounds are, well, simplistic, but somewhat alright. And, well, you get something in default systems level quality, looking like an A330 and having the range of an A330. So I suppose if that is what you're after, then this is an add-on that I can recommend you to get. If you're looking for anything like study level simulation, or if you're looking even for a little bit more system depth than default, then I would probably recommend you to go for the Headwind A330. It's freeware after all, doesn't look as good in the cockpit, in fact it looks quite a bit worse in the cockpit than this one, but on the other hand side, the Headwind is totally free of charge, so something that you might as well look into. That's going to be it from my side for this one. Let's go ahead and find ourselves a parking spot on the right hand side over here. Here we go. I do hope you enjoyed this little flight. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think about it. But when you're rating this one, then always keep in mind you are looking at something that is intended to be default level in terms of the systems, and therefore keep that in mind when you are doing your rating, just like I'm keeping it in mind when I did mine over here. Alright, that should be roughly it. Probably a little bit to the left, but not enough room to correct for that over here. So we're just going to stop the airplane right over here when we went for far enough forward. That looks about fine. Okay, cool. So park and brake on, APU bleed on, and then we can shut down the engines. Right, cabin crew, all doors in park. No thanks, GSX, don't need you. So that thing's coming down, and as soon as the slides are disarmed, suppose we're not going to see that on here, we're going to turn the seatbelts off. Again, standby pump should have been turned off before the main pumps, but is not simulated in here. And the engines have run down, so we can turn off the beacon light as well. Ground power available, we'll put the plane on ground power, and that's about it. Alright, I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do let me know in the comments below, and I'm looking forward to your rating through the likes versus dislikes ratio as well. Finally, if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I do have a detailed flight with the Headwind A330 as well, so make sure to look at that. I am going to link it in the video description below. I see you all again on the next one. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more, and finally, if you really like what I'm doing over here, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I see you all again on the next one.